Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's continue with Divided by Witchcraft and see what happens in the trial, I guess. Wednesday, the 19th of August, 1612. Janet Bailey, Ellen Bailey and Jane Southworth of Salisbury, in the county of Lancaster, you are charged that each of you has feloniously practised, excised, and used divers devilish and wicked arts called witchcrafts, enchantments, charms, and sorceries, in and upon one Grace Sowerbutt's. How do you plead? They all said not guilty. Well, of course they would, wouldn't they? Then I will call on the stand up at point where I needed to sort so I could say, "Oh, Granny, oh, Aunt Ellen, and oh, Mistress Jane." The look Granny gave me were fit to freeze my blood, and I couldn't keep her eye. I was so happy to sit again where Granny and Aunt Ellen couldn't see me so clear. Thomas Covell stood and greeted the judge, and the other men sat with him. And now I knew why Master Holden had used his quill so much. Every word I'd said, Master Colville said now to the judge. I didn't realise he'd pass on everything, even the stuff about Walsham's babby. I could feel Thomas Walsham's eyes digging into me back, but I couldn't turn and look at him. Not even Father Southwood would be able to make me do that. The judge, Bromley his name were, listened to it all, using his own quill to make some notes. He stared hard at me a few times as Master Colville was speaking, and I looked away, but then I saw Granny was still glaring at me too, and I cast my eyes down again, so I didn't have to look back. His gaze made me uncomfortable, it did. He reminded me of Father Southworth, and Granny's were even worse. When Master Colville had finished, the whole room, with all them people, were quiet as a churchyard, and sweat trickled down my back. Suddenly I weren't so sure that all the fuss and food that Father Southwood had given us were worth it. I took in a deep breath when Master Colville sat down. Sure the judge would be asking me questions, as Father Southwood had warned me he would, but he didn't. He asked Granny, Aunt Ellen, and Mistress Jane instead, but they had to say in reply. Well, they made a right fuss, they did. It were shaming to witness. They fell in their knees, their hands clasped and pleading to the judge, all three of them weeping like babes. I stared at the floor the whole time. Father Southworth hadn't warned me of this. They said I was but a pawn in another vendetta. I think that was the word Mistress Jane used. An ill-wishing, I reckon, she meant. An ill-wishing indeed. I can't see what else it would mean. And I've been led astray and encouraged by another. That's what she meant. Well, it were clear who they were talking about, but I would not lift my eyes to theirs. Nothing on earth could make me. I could feel the judge's eyes burning into me, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Then I were knocked forward and nearly fell. Pa and Thomas Walshman were fighting in court, no less, with Ma screaming at the pair of 'em. We all backed away to give 'em room. William Alker and John Singleton tried to break 'em up, but they couldn't, not until the bailiff waded in with his cudgel. Well, it were a right to do. The judge were in his face, banging his little mallet on the bench in front of him. I'm not sure what good he thought that would do, but everyone were calming down in the face at bailiff's cudgel, and soon it were quiet again. Grace Sowerbutts. That were the judge calling my name again. He said it twice more, and Ma elbowed me to look up at him. It seems clear that there is more to this case than the evidence you gave to Master Holden. I shrugged but kept my mouth shut. Did you tell Master Holden the truth? Aye, sir, I mumbled. Speak up, girl. I stared back at him now. Aye, sir, I said. You will address me as Your Honour. Oh, aye, I'd forgotten that. I shrank against Ma'am, frit now of what were happening. This were not like the father had said it would be at all. The judge stared at me in silence a while, but I wouldn't say no more. Has somebody told you to tell tales? I stayed dumb. I were good for that when I needed to be. I looked after Pa that way. It'll us befuddle people when I wouldn't speak, as I were usually ever fond of words, or the sound of me own voice, as Granny often complained. Unless telling me, hush, she were. Happen, these days were gone now. Answer me, girl. I jumped. I realised I'd have to say something, or he wouldn't let up. I was sent to a master to learn, Your Honour, that's all. Learn what? Me prayers, that's all. You don't have nothing to do with this, Your Honour. That were true enough. Father Southworth hadn't told me what to say. He'd just been learning me from that book. And if I weren't careful, he'd be getting into trouble and all. And then God knew what would befall me. Prayers, I nodded. Aye, from the Bible. And Mal something or other, about witches and hammers. Judge Bromley stared at me. Ah, the Malleus Maleficarum. Aye, sir, Your Honour, that's it. I nodded again to show him I was sure. Her master is my late husband's uncle, Your Honour, Jane, Southwood said into the silence. He is a Jesuit and has recently returned to Salisbury after many years, detained at Queen Elizabeth's pleasure. I see. He sat back and sniffed, still staring at me. I thought I caught the smell of potpourri in this. What is the priest's name? Father Christopher Southworth, Your Honour, although he also uses the name Master Thomas. And is he here today, mistress? I do not see him, Your Honour. Why would he teach this girl these detestable accusations? When he was last in Salisbury, we were all of the old faith, Your Honour, but now come to church and have done so for many years. Christopher likes that not. I see. He nodded with a frown at Mistress Jane. Oh, well, if a priest or Jesuit has a hand in one end of it, there would appear to be knavery and practice in the other. He paused and glanced at Ma and Pa. Who is the master who taught your daughter? Is he Father Southworth or Master Thomas? Pa squared his shoulders. I know not, Your Honour. The judge frowned at him, but Pa wouldn't say no more, and when Pa didn't want to talk, nought could make him. I shuffled me feet, as it seemed every bugger else were doing, waiting for one of them to speak. At last, Judge Bromley gave up on Pa. It is clear to me that there is more to this case than has been presented. Master Coble went red under the judge's black look, but knew enough to stay quiet. Witchcraft is a scourge that has swept this county, and I shall not stand for it. But nor shall I stand for papists accusing innocents of such wickedness, nor of using such young and simple minds to do so. I frowned. Who would he call simple? Ma elbowed me, and I knew she were right. Best to say nought. I am not convinced of the veracity of the evidence we have heard this day. I therefore adjourn this case, and commit Mistress Sowerbutts to be examined by my colleagues in Justice of the Peace, William Lee and Edward Chisnell, away from all other influences until we get the truth of the matter. He banged his little mallet again, and I stared. What? Granny, Aunt Ellen, and Mistress Jane were taken away from the dock, and the bailiff caught me arm and pulled me to the door. I stared back at Mam as I went, and cursed Father Southworth under my breath. As you can see, the tide is sort of turning round now, isn't it? And though I have to say, that's good of the judge too, that, because he wants the truth, he doesn't want tales, he wants what's actually happening. So it's good of the judge to decide to take her to one side and do his own inquiries. That's something I definitely believe in. Thank you for listening to this episode, and please join me for the next episode, of course. Many, many blessings.